Gilbert, do you believe in an October surprise, and what do you think it might be?
I think we might, maybe business tax cuts, something, but I think it would be something modest, and I just don't think they really have anything big that they can spring at this point. I wanted to say on Lyle's point about 2012, in purely political terms, it's interesting that the presidents who've been kind of riding high at this stage of their presidencies, like George H.W. Bush, 2 years in his term, his numbers were through the roof, but the economy tanked in the second half. Reagan, I think, was at 39% approval 2 years into his term because we had the recession, and then it rebounded in time. And obviously, you'd like to have a good economy at all times, but in political terms, for him, the key is really what happens in the third and fourth years, because we've had a history. Clinton was down and out 2 years into his term.
Do you
Reagan
think, though,
was down
isn't
and
this
out.
a different recession? This isn't Reagan's recession.
That's true.
And people get the feeling
that was about interest
in,
rates. That had a lot to do with it.
We're in for a long haul. We don't expect that we're going to be prospering in 2012.
I think that's true. I think when Paul Volcker lowered the interest rates with Reagan, because he brought them up to kind of curb inflation,
right.
And when they went down,
right.
that really had a lot to do with it. And I don't think we have anything like that comparable that we can do.
And what about in terms of an October surprise? Does that help these congressional candidates, or is that simply the beginning of Barack Obama's political, comeback? Because one thing, when people say, where is he, or he needs to get turbocharged, I have the feeling that he doesn't really care that much what happens to the Congress. My theory is that he feels like he can do what he's doing with a Republican Congress or a Democratic Congress. He's not invested in how many seats his party holds in this race.
Well, Bill Clinton made a comeback when the Republicans took Congress.
Right.
It gave him something. It gave him something to fight against.
It was easier for him not to have to defend everything.
That's exactly right.
Democrats
I think
were doing.
Something like that could happen.
Yeah, Clinton wasn't governing from the left. He was always he leaned a little left, but he was always in the center, and that's why I think people gravitated to him. The independents and the Democrats and some Republicans. This guy's way out there left, and I don't know if first of all his ego will allow him to move back to the center, and the folks that are around him. If you look at the leadership in the Congress, both in the Senate and the House, those folks really like what they're getting right now without the consequence for the country, whether we're going to turn this recession around. The economic numbers that we're looking at, and a $13 trillion debt that has to be paid back, and you look at the amount of debt service and the entitlement programs growing, there's very little hope from a governing standpoint of how we turn this around unless we get 7-8% growth. And if we don't get that, I don't see this turning around in 2 years. I don't see it turn around in 5 years. So that's the reality of it. So he's going to have to do something to stimulate, and we can't use stimulus money. That doesn't work. Taking money out of people's pockets to initiate government programs in any economy worldwide, it's never stimulated their economy to grow. So I think that's what he's going to have to grapple with over the next 6-8 months. Otherwise, I think he's dead in the water in the Democratic primary. I think somebody like Hillary Clinton or somebody's going to come out, and they're going to offer a lifeline from the center to the people in the Democratic Party, and then we've got a race again in 2012.
You're not having a Republican fantasy there? You're not having a little Republican...
I could have.
Having a little Republican daydream there?
I might have been drinking.
That's like Republican porn, Hillary Clinton comes back and takes on Barack Obama, gets revenge.
Yeah, Republican porn. I can't believe that. That's an oxymoron. I don't think that'll ever happen.
You're free to take that and use that whenever you would like. We have more Gang of Four coming up for a Friday morning, including longest 16 minutes ever in American politics. KTSA News Time is 10:44. Jack Riccardi 10 to 1. Gilbert Garcia and Lyle Larson have both just told me that they will only do Gang of Four when Yami Veden is on with them.
Right.
So that's it now. They refuse to come back unless we have her on. All right, she's from Fox San Antonio. Gilbert's from the Express News, correspondent covering City Hall. Lyle Larson's running for state legislature this fall, has a Democratic opponent. We'll be hopefully getting them together here in the studio very soon. Speaking of debates, it was not a good night Wednesday night for Arizona Governor Jan Brewer. She's been riding high lately since signing SB 1070, and now running for her first full term as governor of Arizona, facing a very tough Democrat. In fact, before she signed that bill, she was trailing this guy by double digits, and since signing it, she's been leading him by double digits. But in the debate Wednesday night, probably the longest 16 seconds you have ever heard. Here she is, Jan Brewer.
And finally, we hear from Jan Brewer.
Thank you, Ted, and it's great to be here with Larry, Barry, and Terry, and thank you all for watching us tonight. I have done so much, and I just cannot believe that we have changed everything since I become your governor in the last 600 days. Arizona has been brought back from its abyss. We have cut the budget, we have balanced the budget, and we are moving forward. We have done everything that we could possibly do. We have did what was right for Arizona. I will tell you that I have really did the very best that anyone could do. And we have pushed back hard against the federal government. We have filed suit against Obama health care, and we have passed Senate Bill 1070, and we will continue to do what's right for Arizona. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
All right, very good.
Okay, you know, here's what I think happened. I believe she actually saw an illegal immigrant, and she froze up.
Distracted, yeah.
She was distracted by the sight of an illegal immigrant. Look, I don't understand. I mean, you got to come out. You're the incumbent. You got this thing you got to defend, or maybe it's your ticket to the big time. What happened there, Lyle? Let me start with you because you're a guy that's been in a lot of debates. Have you ever had a brain freeze like that?
No, it reminded me in 7th grade, I was in a speech class, and this guy gets up and he starts talking, and he stopped, and then everybody in the class felt sorry for him, and it's like, come on, get through it, you know, and throwing ideas out. And I think everybody in that audience and everybody that's watched it nationally, it's very difficult to watch somebody struggle with that. The only thing I can think is when she walked out of the studio after the debate was over, the media folks ran up to her and started asking her questions, mainly about the beheading of illegal aliens out in the desert, and she refused to answer the question. But her cognitive skills weren't working, and so maybe she's on an antidepressant or she's on some kind of medication that she wasn't on her A game obviously last night. But there was something going on there, because I've watched her both on the news and then in news programs, and boy, she was quick and she knew what she was talking about. So I don't know exactly. And sometimes when people are having debates, that's the first time they've been one-on-one and they get uncomfortable. They don't want to say the wrong thing. And maybe the other gentleman, he was very articulate, he spoke well, and then she came in afterwards, and maybe she felt like, well, I need to say something more than what I prepared.
But I mean, it's your opening statement, Yami. I mean, you gotta know what you're gonna say. You may be surprised by a question, but you can't be surprised by the opening statement.
You know what I really think happened here, and I see reporters, younger reporters, they get there and they write every word down of what I have to say, and I gotta hit it, and they miss one word, and there goes the rest of your live shot. And it was kind of like she had a message, it was set, you gotta hit everything, and she missed something, and where the hell am I? How do I recover now?
Yeah. And Gilbert, I'll tell you, I mean, you know, I don't know how badly this will hurt her, but it's now made her the most played viral video in the universe.
That's the problem. I mean, 20 years ago, if you had a bad debate performance, it was, you know, the limited audience that saw it. Saw it and nobody else. But this is going to be, it's embarrassing, and it's embarrassing for people in that state because they know how this is being treated. You know, nonetheless, she is really popular at this point. So I don't. People compare it to the Admiral Stockdale debate in '92, but I actually thought that Admiral Stockdale was pretty endearing. I when he said, "Who am I? What am I doing here?" I ask myself that quite often. So I thought that was that worked for me. But this was.
I think he knew who he was. It was more of a rhetorical question.